Do you want your business to grow? Yes or no? If you want it to grow, then you got to step aside. 19-year-old, I went to making really, really good money really, really fast. Problem with that is I'd never been trained to manage money, was I blew it all. One of the biggest shifts you're gonna have from going from a 7-figure mindset to an 8-figure mindset, or even a 6 to a 7, is it's not as much about creating revenues as much about compounding time, talent, and resources. Pride and ego drive your behavior systems, then essentially you're setting yourself up for a catastrophic failure. I can tell you there was $1.7 million missing. I thought the world was gonna come to an end because I had to fire literally an entire executive team almost overnight. Most of us think that there's more money to be made by bringing in more clients, when in reality there's more money to be made by structuring your company correctly. One of the greatest things that I ever did as a leader is I asked this one question. This will rock your world. You ready?
Ready.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the podcast. I'm here with my guy. You probably seen me all over with him. The one and only Stephen Scoggins is in the building. What's going on, fam?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Man, this is cool, man. We're here in person. And I got to ask you questions that I have been waiting to ask you. I've had the opportunity to work alongside you. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to place you on shows. But most importantly, I want the world to really, really get a glimpse. You know, when you look at your bio, if you look at all the things you've done, you automatically start thinking about 8 figures. So I want to ask you, before we talk about 8-figure businesses, take me back to the day like you first realized that you were homeless. I want to really think about
Did I realize I was homeless?
Yeah,
well, there was no roof over my head. No, you know, the backstory of that is my first mentor, guy, I call him Old Man Myrick a lot when I'm on stage or whatever. His name was Steve Myrick. He was a home builder in the Carolina areas, North and South Carolina. Dad worked for him for literally almost his entire life until Steve passed away. But what was interesting was, in about 19 years old, I was working for a company called Waste Industries, delivering trash cans. And next thing you know, I was like running roll-off, like assistant roll-off manager and all this kind of stuff, and had this falling out with some guy they hired. And abruptly left there, went to go work for Steve, and Steve put me into business for myself. And 19-year-old, I went to making really, really good money really, really fast. Problem with that is I'd never been trained to manage money. So, as you can imagine, one of the first things that I did was I blew it all.
Oh, man.
So, you know, I got involved in, you know, it turned out to be like a bit of a Achilles heel for a huge chunk of my life, which I've finally overcome, which is like toxic relationships and all that kind of stuff. And trying to find your self-value and self-worth and, you know, getting the next brass ring or buying the car or doing the thing. And of course, I had I got at the time it was a 1998 Camaro, first one off the lot.
Oh, man.
Right, through a system in it so the back end would bounce as I would
What color was it?
Oh, silver, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, silver. 5, you know, I think it was a stick shift, a 6 gears, right? So it was, you know, it was pretty, it was sexy. And it attracted, look, here's the thing. What you seek attracts you.
Yeah.
So I went out there and started like showing my self-worth based on the stuff. Right? I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. I'm making money, like flipping $100 bills in the back in the day in the you know, pool halls of, you know, because I thought I was something, even though hindsight being 2020, I'm like, you're an idiot, dude. But
I thought it was hot.
Yeah, I thought it was hot. But you know what happened was I ran into a situation where that relationship just really took a toll on me because I was tying my identity to the relationship, or I was tying my identity to my self-perception of what I was quote unquote achieving, accomplishing. And since I dropped out of high school and I was dyslexic and ADHD and all these kinds of things, and I was told pretty much as soon as I dropped out of high school that I'd never amount to anything. I would never be anything. You know, people were very hard on me. They had no idea I dropped out of high school to help my family pay the bills. Like, 'cause my dad was out of work. He had gotten like, not sick, but like gotten injured on the job. So all this is like happening behind the scenes, like, because it's one thing to actually live a life. It's another thing to actually understand what causes your behavior systems to live your life, right? And sure enough, I go and make a bunch of money. I was 19 years old. I was making well over 6 figures, right? In 1990s,
That's
late 90s,
insane.
right? So call it $250,000 a year in today's money, right?
Yeah.
I never trained to handle money. And sure enough, I blew it all, spent it all, tried to rescue, tried to save, tried to caretake, all this kind of stuff. And lo and behold, I just found myself like so depressed that I didn't want to function. And I went to a job site one day because it's a construction business. He put me in business together. And as I'm sitting there, like I don't want to, I can't function. So I dropped everything on the ground. I literally walked off his project and he couldn't find me for probably the next 3 to 6 months.
Oh, man.
You know, so I say that to say that I had to learn a very hard lesson that pride and ego drive your behavior systems, then essentially you're setting yourself up for a catastrophic failure. At the same time, it also turned out to be a catastrophic catapult. So many times the things that take your legs out from under you, become the very same things, if used properly, that elevate you to whatever your next standard is. I say that to say that a year goes by and I'm bouncing around. I've been homeless off and on for a while. I try to get my way and make my way into the Navy, try to become a SEAL and all this kind of I tried everything under the sun to try to get my life back together. Just, it wasn't measuring up. And, you know, I had this experience, this divine encounter at a litter box. We don't have time to get into that today, but that story does exist online. Found my faith and literally was giving a second chance to start a company. You know, so the funny thing is like the homelessness piece created in me a humility that actually drives the service today. Like, I thank God for the times that he's humbled me and he's put me through catastrophic problems and put me through situations that's forced me to refine my character, refine my integrity and all this kind of stuff. You know, you and I have talked offline many times. It's like, now I'm in a position I can go and do whatever I want and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I'm not, in fact, one of my lowest moments, I can literally do all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think entrepreneurs are pursuing the wrong thing so many times, which is how they get off track. So, yeah. So, I mean, that homeless time frame was just, it was character building.
Absolutely.
You know, and it shaped me and it taught me and it matured me. And, you know, it became a huge part of kind of what I'm doing today.
What do you think that version of Stephen, when you look back at that version of you, what do you feel like that version of Stephen thought about success and what was he wrong about?
Oh, it's simple. Stephen thought that if he achieved enough, he would be received enough. So when you talk about receiving, you're talking about people seeing you for who you are and seeing your true authentic identity. The problem is if you show them a mask, they can worship a mask. They can't like really buy into a character, right? Right, buy into you. And this last probably 18 months of my life, it's all about authenticity. You know, we had the fortunate pleasure of coaching some folks that you're connected to and did that. And we loved it. And so far that I know, everybody like really got a lot of
Absolutely did.
You know, and part of that was because I was authentic me. Like they saw my heart. They saw I really wanted to help and serve, right? So Stephen then was very much chasing prestige, credibility, notability. He wanted to be seen for what he could achieve. And if you're only seen for what you can achieve, you're always going to be empty. Right? So how much money I can make, what thing I could do, how much value I could bring to a room or all that kind of stuff. Stephen now is like, I'm good. I'm good if I never do another thing in my life because I've already done stuff that most people will never do.
Facts.
Unless you and I together, we can make an impact to help them get there, which is our goal. So
100%. You know, most people try to motivate themselves out of tough times, but you built a legacy around that, right? When you think about that, what is the first like unsexy decision like that you made that shifted like your entire life trajectory?
Unsexy decision.
Yeah.
To pull away. You know this offline. Part of the reason I'm now putting myself out is I took a 1.5 years off. So one of the things that happens when you sell a company, you go through not an identity crisis, but a recalibration of identity. Because I'd wake up at 5:30. I would do my prayer meditation thing. I'd go hit the gym. I'd listen to my podcast, my audiobooks. I would go do all these things and I would start my day. And then my day would just blur by, right? Putting out this fire, helping this person, traveling over here, doing this over here, all this kind of stuff. And basically, if you're not careful as an entrepreneur, you become your business.
Facts.
And if you become your business, the moment that you can't be there, your business no longer exists, right? So one of the things that entrepreneurs do that I really focus on now is helping them get the perspective of getting things in place that doesn't require their attention as much. Now, focus and attention are different. So you have an executive summary, you got the executive meetings, you got things you got to do, but you thinking that you have to do everything all by yourself. And if it's going to, I think if it's to be, it's up to me kind of concept will keep you broke. It'll keep you from scaling. It'll keep you from getting where you need to get to. Actually, what actually happened was I had done every single role in all the businesses I've had at least once by myself. And every time I chose to delegate and grow myself and mature, every single time, the people that I hired to do it after me did it better than I ever could.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
Because it's they're gifted. They're gifted in that zone of genius, right? So in this same framework, it kind of works the same way. Like I think the biggest shift for me was understanding that if it was up to me, then it was never going to be. Let that sink in for a second. Like a lot of the entrepreneurs have an 8-figure dream or 9-figure dream. I've been very blessed to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in a single year and with different venues and different ventures. Imagine if I was trying to do all that by myself. I was trying to be my COO, my CEO, my CFO, like my administration people. Like there's strategy and practical tactics when it comes to, okay, what am I really stinking good at? Well, I'm really good at teaching. I'm really good at strategy, and I'm really good at vision, right? I've always told people I can see 5 years ahead, but I have a hard time seeing 5 minutes ahead. So I have to find my 5-minute thinkers, right? People that can fill in the gaps. I think you and I talked about it last time I was here. I'm the guy with a machete, sees woods. Like I see, okay, we're gonna build Disney World. And they're like, what are you there's nothing but trees over there. I'm like, machete, shh, let's go, and start chopping down stuff. Meanwhile, I've got the support of a team coming in, they're laying down roads, like putting down concrete, putting down bushes, like throwing seed and straw down to make sure the roads look pretty, like all the way to this massive vision that we're trying to go to. So a lot of it comes down to understanding that the greatest shift in business is always going to be you and how you view your business.
Because as you view your business, you're also being the director of it, right? I think what's important is I see you as like a visionary. And when you move like a visionary, if you can just keep that vision, if you have those people in place, they're like assets. They're just trying to go after it for you. And I think a lot of people are probably hearing you right now saying, oh, I probably need to make that hire that I've been holding off on. You also teach 8-figure mindset. Let's talk about that. But what is one mindset that actually cost you time and money early on because you held on to it too long?
I think, all right, so I think I've shared this with you before. There's 5 major phases in building a business. And I'm going to answer your question, but so you have startup, you have testing, investing, scaling, and then you get the choice of operating and selling. Okay. So when you're in startup mode, it's hustle and grind, making things happen, knocking stuff down, machete with trees, all the things I just mentioned. Testing is when you finally realize, hey, you got your hands on something. Okay, now I got to find what works, what really works, right? Investing is once you understand what really works, now you're like, okay, how do I put the systems, the people, the processes, and all that stuff in place, right? The scaling is, okay, all of that's now dialed in. Now I got to figure out how to replicate and duplicate my efforts. Okay. I say that to say, then you get to operating and selling. And that's because we're talking about 7 to 8. I'll leave that alone for a second. Your 7-figure earners are focused on creating revenue. I got to make money. 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 One of the biggest shifts you're going to have from going from a 7-figure mindset to an 8-figure mindset, or even a 6 to a 7, 6 to 8 for sure, is it's not as much about creating revenue as much about compounding time, talent, and resources. So I look at ways to actually invest that create money. Right? So it could be passive income streams. It could be a computer process that saves me time, saves me energy.
That part.
It makes it easier on my team. So now they got a higher quality of life. Those are just like one main concept. I think the second main concept that I see a lot is entrepreneurs want to hoard. 6 and 7-figure entrepreneurs, they want to hoard. They're like, the idea is mine. The structure's mine. If it's going to be done right, it's mine. And they don't realize by actually holding on and grasping, their hand's not actually open for them to receive anything, right? So the people that come alongside of your business will often have a process and system mindset if you hire correctly. So as a visionary, I know that I need integrators. I need people that can take my vision and help me communicate to a team. There was a theology probably about 10 years ago by a guy named Tom Patterson. He wrote I wish I could remember the name of the book. Just research Tom Patterson. I want to say he actually invented the ATM machine.
Oh, wow. That's a crazy invention.
Tom taught this process that he called thinking wavelengths. And I learned it from a good friend of mine, Chris Lacerto, who I met through the Ramsey organization a number of years ago. And essentially there's grinders, there's minders, there's keepers, there's finders, and what they call theologians or seekers, okay? The grinders don't understand vision. So if I'm going to sit across the table from a grinder who really, all they really want to do is do the administration work. That's what they want to do. It makes them happy. They're okay doing the same thing day after day after day after day, right? Then we're going to have a disconnect. They're not going to understand. I'm trying, well, we're going to go here. And can't you see like 5 years from now and 3 years from now, we got this and we got this holding company and we got the apparel line and we got the thought leadership line and we got the real estate holding company and we got the media company, right? They're going to be like, that's scary as hell. I don't think I want to mess with that, right? A minder is going to be someone who's going to be like more of a, hey, look, I understand a little bit of vision. I actually really like just working with the grinders really and kind of being administrative. Almost like departments or administrative managers, okay? Then you've got the keeper.
Okay.
Keepers are integrators. So for those of the audience that have read the book Rocket Fuel, it talks about visionaries and integrators. Every visionary must be aligned with an integrator. Someone that can take the vision, break it down into micro steps and macro steps, and actually put those in a structured way that the team can follow it.
That's good.
So that's a lot of what a COO or director of operations or something like that does. Okay. Entrepreneurs that struggle with vision and finding integrators will always stay in startup and testing mode. They can't move because they don't have the structures in place to build a platform to stand on. So therefore the team can't stand on the platform. Okay. Finders are what we refer to as the visionary. They see opportunity everywhere. Their biggest roadblock is they don't see a lot of risk everywhere. So it's like, opportunity, can't you just see? The keeper's going to be like, hey, and the minders and keepers specifically are really good at seeing the risk and bringing that to awareness. Okay. And then the theologians, if you will, the ones that just, they have great ideas. Albert Einstein, for example, he just spent his entire career in his head. Yeah. Right. Thinking and stuff like that. So those categories give you a framework of where you're at and what you need to do. So in the entrepreneurs that we coached, right, a few weeks ago, I think of the 5 that we spent the couple days with, I think 3 of them were more in the finder category.
Elaborate on that.
So they have very big visions, right? One's got an amazing show out with he and his wife are doing some amazing flips and doing some great stuff on A&E. Yeah. And their strategy is, okay, we need to bust to a different ceiling. Okay, we've got there. If I look at that 5 phases of building a business, they're already in the investing category. They're trying to figure out how to scale. Yeah. Right. Yep. And our entire conversation is how do we get the integration and the process and systems in place? But see, they're wise enough to recognize that they need it. Right. Not a lot of entrepreneurs recognize the need for that. They just think it's going to happen if they just push hard enough. I've learned that forcing things to happen causes problems. Right? Surrendering to where you are in the process will actually allow you to adopt a better mindset. In fact, I've shared this with you before, and this held true for every entrepreneur that we met with, right? Yeah. Every entrepreneur, the one mindset we all share in common, all of us, I don't care who it is, I don't care what stage of business you're at, is we all think we should be further ahead than we actually are.
I wonder why is that though? You know, it could be the comparison theory. It could be watching other people. It could be, thinking, I think about it often. I was sharing this earlier, and I was thinking about this often. Is that a lot of people come to me and they're at this phase where everyone that comes to me thinks they're extremely hot in terms of what they've accomplished and what they're doing. And they want more and more. They feel like they deserve to be here. Very, very similar conversation. They deserve to be at this certain stage. And what I'm finding out is a lot of them need to be more humble and realizing that how many people have never heard their name and realizing that every opportunity that they get is a new door. And I think everyone talks about scaling up. What is a scaling down move that you've made, something that you stopped doing that actually made your company explode?
You know what's really funny? So one of the greatest business reversals I had was back in 2017. In 2017, the large construction business I built, we were already, I think maybe 50 or 60 million at that time, top line revenue. We had 300 team members across maybe 3 states at the time. And keep in mind, I started that from a trash pile. So the amount of leadership growth and the team member growth and the awareness things and the things that I had to push through. The reason I say that is because in 2017, I have to use this phrase, suspected embezzlement. I can tell you there was $1.7 million missing.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? And in that suspected embezzlement, I thought the world was going to come to an end. However, what I realized is myself and many of my team members, because I had to fire literally an entire executive team almost overnight. Well, it was overnight actually. When I went through that process, we had gotten sloppy and lazy. We were letting money slip through our hands. One thing that COVID did, one thing that the embezzlement did is it forced me to go back and look at every single area money was coming in and every single area that was money was going out. We added 3.5% margin on a multi-million-dollar operation within 18 months of doing that one exercise. Okay. Subscriptions, team members, the people that we have in the grand scheme of things they're not top performers. A lot of us like to hold on to people that we know we shouldn't hold on to.
Absolutely.
Right. So we come in, we're stressed because we know we got to deal with this team member issue. And the reality is we're holding ourselves back. I think I shared with you before too, offline, that going from 0 to $1 million, you can hold on about 90% of your team, maybe 95% of your team.
Yeah, you have shared that, yeah.
1 million to 10 million, you're gonna hold on to about 80% of your team. 10 million to 50 million, you're gonna hold on to about 30% of your team. from 10 million to 20 and 30 million, you're only going to hold about 10%. By the time you go from $1 to 80 million or 90 million in top line revenue, you might have 1 or 2% of your team there.
Why is that? And I'm coming from an angle, you know, prior to being a full-time entrepreneur. I became a full-time entrepreneur in 2021 when I walked away from being a brand manager at Target. And I hired and fired a lot of people. You know, in fact, any given moment, about 150 people reported to me. And I always used to think,
a lot of people, dude.
I had to try to take a bathroom break. Which one of the pleasures of being an entrepreneur is the freedom, you know? And so I got to ask you, you know, coming from that corporate background and that experience and that environment, you know, sometimes you do start seeing turnover. You know, from a corporate world, you would say, okay, they think they deserve a promotion or they deserve a higher pay. What have you noticed by going from those different levels on why that drop off percentage wise was so significant?
I'll give you 3 pillars. Okay. Pillar number 1 is your team has to desire growth. Every single role that's in charge of every single responsibility, that person has to desire the need to grow with the company. Okay. Which requires them to grow themselves. And a lot of people hit a ceiling and they don't want to push past it. Okay, so eventually the business outgrows the person sitting in the seat. Okay, so that's pillar 1. Pillar number 2 is the leadership of the team member. I can't tell you how many team members walked out the door, either got fired or got fed up because the leader wasn't leading them well. I think I told you before offline that one of the things that I realized was I remember I had this time, I might have been in business maybe 16 years by that time, right? And I had this one leader and he was like burning through people. This is like maybe 2018, 2019. They were burning through. I'm like, dude, what is going on? He said, well, so-and-so didn't work out. I'm like, but we spent 3 months trying to find them. And we met with them 7 times. Like we met with them repeatedly to make sure they were the right one. Right. So finally he comes up and says, hey, look, I think I need to let so-and-so go. I'm like, I want to talk to so-and-so first. You and me are going to meet with so-and-so. And sure enough, we sit down. And I sit down with him like, hey, I'm just curious, you know, your leader has been telling me now for a little while that you're struggling and all this. And the shock on their face was like, what are you talking about? I'm putting in extra time and hours. I'm doing all I know to do. And I was like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Do you actually know what you're supposed to be doing? And they're like, well, I'm supposed to be doing this, this, and this. I was like, interesting. Hey, leader, you do realize that the thing that they think they're supposed to be doing is not the thing you actually need them to do? Well, yeah. I said, okay, well, show me the training documentation. Show me where you and or the training team member, because we had different trainers in different areas, actually spent time to train them and test their competency. Couldn't produce the documents.
Oh, that's terrible.
Could not produce the documents, could not produce the videos, could not produce the one-on-one material. There was no documentation of any kind. Okay. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do, guys and gals. I said, before this conversation goes any further, I want you to immediately go back through training based on the training modules we have set in place for this role that you're supposed to be doing with the KPIs and the metrics we want you to hit. Okay. Leader. I'm going to test the competency myself personally. And if they don't pass the competency exam, it'll be a leadership problem and your job's on the line. I'm trying to set a perspective that leadership requires training, mentorship. Part of one of my frameworks in business is hire slow, fire fast, but mentor often. I was doing my best to mentoring my team. If they had a need, hey, we'd meet with them and say, hey, what's going on? Well, I got this and this. Okay, well, give me 2 or 3 options that you've already come up with. Well, this, and this. Okay, well, I choose option D because of this. And I would use that as the training tool, right? I want them to do the same thing. I function off a discipleship message, right? So lo and behold, obviously, because I'm adding pressure, right? And it's okay to add pressure as a leader. You don't have to be unkind. You don't have to be mean-spirited. You don't have to yell, but you can set a healthy expectation of this is what's required. So 30 days goes by. They come back, test the competency. As far as I know, that team member is still with the company today as a rock star that would have gotten fired.
Wow.
Because a leader didn't step up and train them properly. So that's pillar number 2, is you need to make sure that the leadership team or the leadership person is taking the time to actually train. You know what the number 1 person is that has the greatest problem training people is?
The person doing the training?
The entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
They're entrepreneur. They very seldom even communicate with their executive teams.
Wow.
Right? The third one, I think the third pillar is, that's why I said it's such a big one. The third one is actually making sure that the leader themselves is growing. Okay. So I got asked one time by a major manufacturer of products we used to buy. I used to spend millions of dollars with them and buying material from them every year. They come to me and say, hey, we can't find any company like yours really in what we do, this niche that we have really across the country. This is probably 2012 or 13. I kind of want to know what your secret sauce is. And I was like, well, if I'm that unique, I don't want to tell you what I'm doing. That's my competitive advantage. At the same time, I got into thinking about that. I didn't have an answer for him in the moment. Right? And this, I think every business can learn from this one concept, because it was a huge pivot. It caused us to double in size. Okay.
It's big.
And when you go from 50 and you double in size, that's a big number, right? It was very simple. I said, hey, I realized that one of the reasons that the company's been so successful is because of my heart of mentorship and serving. Okay. Which means that I discovered that we were a personal development company masquerading as my entity. So yes, what we did was in the construction space or in the exterior space, but how we did it was from the inside out. So one of the core messages I'm trying to take to the marketplace right now is, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to grow a big business, which is nothing wrong with that, because right, you're trying to give your family a better life, you're trying to make an impact, all this kind of stuff, that you need to do it from the inside out. Right? You brought up the fact that, hey, you got all these people that are like, well, I think I should be further along, and there's no humility there, right?
Yeah.
I call it humble confidence, right?
Yeah.
Either you will develop humble confidence on your own, or you will be humbled.
Absolutely.
You'll do one or the other, right? And there's 2 ways to learn, right? You can learn by your own pain of your own mistakes, or you can learn by a lot of the ones that I've made, kind of deal. But in the grand scheme of things, there's a constant comparison. Well, my buddy, he built $100 million company. I'm sitting at 50 million. So I feel insecure. I feel insignificant, unseen, unvalued, right? The drive's all wrong. What if you set it out to be as authentic as you possibly can be, as integrated as you possibly can? When you say integrated, your values, your belief, your business, your core value, all of that stuff is in complete alignment. And then you focused on impact. How can you serve the marketplace in a way that nobody else can? How can you increase the value of your value proposition? Not by doing it the same way. How can you innovate? How can you lead? That's one of the things we were talking with the entrepreneurs about, right? Yeah. It's like, how can we make you stand out in a crowd full of noise? It's not by chasing more value. It's not chasing more, like trying to fulfill an insecurity. It's by service.
Absolutely, it is. I think one thing that I admired about you is, one, the service of time. You know, a lot of people at the level you're at wouldn't spend time going back and say, you know what, I'm going to help other people achieve this and help people do that. But also, I admire the faith you have. So I want to talk about it. So let's talk about it. So you talk about building in His light. And I want to talk about, how has faith shown up in your hardest business decisions? Like, how are they really showing up, especially when the money wasn't or was tempting, but the mission was off? Tell me a little bit about it.
You know, one of my favorite scriptures, favorite areas is multiple scriptures in the Bible, actually deals with the 5-talent principle. Okay, so in scripture, for those who are Christian or have a faith based in Jesus, then they'll understand this concept. For those who don't, just borrow it and just kind of borrow my faith for just a minute. There's a principle that says now the Bible calls it talents, Talons, which was a denarii, which was equivalent to basically a wage. Yeah. Okay, a coin. Okay. I like to think of it in terms of talents, Talents. Okay. And the principle is hey, the master goes out, or I would actually use the word entrepreneur nowadays. Like the entrepreneur goes out and says, hey, look, I'm going to entrust you with this department. I'm going to trust you with this and this and this. But in this one case, he entrusts one person they call it 5 talents. Okay, talons, right? He got 5 denarii. Well, that person went out and doubled it for the entrepreneur, right? The other person, there's several in the middle, but then we'll go all the way to polar opposite of the other one. Was like, had one. Okay, that one, rather than actually investing it or doubling it or trying to multiply it, they dug it in the ground and buried it. Lo and behold, when the master comes back, the entrepreneur comes back, he comes back and he says, hey, Like, how'd you guys do? What's going on? And of course, the 5 talent guys said, look, I got you 5 more. I doubled it in size. He's like, freaking amazing. You're a rock star. Let's go. Right. He's like super excited about it. And of course, I'm ad-libbing it because this is me envisioning what I'm reading in scripture. Like I'm thinking like there's a token, like, yeah. Right. Well, he goes through the other ones, and the other ones multiplied what they were given. Right. The same thing happened with that didn't happen with the last one. The last one just buried it. And he called him wicked because he had a gift, he had a resource, he had a talent, and yet he wasn't applying it. He wasn't utilizing it to leverage things. So when I look at businesses in general, they have to have 3 main things. They have to have a heart of service, they have to have a heart of humility, and they have to have a desire to multiply. Every great leader I've had with my companies have all had a heart, have all had all those 3, but they all wanted to multiply. As they multiplied, I shared. Okay, so we created profit sharing plans and different equity things, all these different types of tools to let them know that when you go and create and when you go and multiply for us, for this organization, not only are you serving the public, not only are you making an impact, not only are you making an income, but I'm going to share that with you because you helped me create it. You know, one of the things that that I haven't shared publicly, I guess I'll share it publicly now, is when I did exit my company, I exited including a couple of my key leaders. Like I brought them to the table. I gave them an opportunity to create their own wealth because they served alongside of me. So many leaders look at their executives or look at their teams as being expendable. If you look at them as if they're going to be expendable, why the hell should they invest in you, in your dream, in your mission? You see what I'm saying? And the fear is that, well, if I teach them everything that I know, they're going to take what I do and go run away. Well, there's protective measures. We talked about this on our show, right?
NDAs, all that.
Yeah, like there's ways to protect it. But at the same time, what if they stayed and were less productive? How much are you holding yourself back because you won't put together a program for your team to benefit from the blessings the business does based on their efforts, right? An entrepreneur creates something out of thin air.
Yep.
Eventually, the thin air is like they've done their part. Now it's a matter of developing leadership, developing skill sets, casting new vision, creating strategies, creating relationships. All the day-to-day operations are being handled by other people.
Correct.
If you ignore those other people, they're going to go find other people to work for.
Man, that's gold there. You know, you also would be, you'll be limiting your capabilities of growing further by not showing them.
Yeah.
You know, what I've learned by obviously working in the corporate background, I had the privilege also of having like the highest engagement scores. And so, you know, out of like the North Carolina, Virginia region, they called it NOVA. Yeah. I've had about a 96% engagement score, which was crazy.
Doesn't surprise me a bit in the world knowing you.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. And so what I found out is I utilized that time as being in an incubator of understanding people, relationships, and what got them to move, what got them to tick, and what really made sense for them to either be a part of what I'm about to say, but I also figured out times when they should be introduced to certain things in the business. Not in the back of my mind, you know, we were talking about it, you know, onboarding, you know, a new executive assistant, Anna, with the company. There's times.
She's killing it, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it.
You give her a round of applause.
Give her a round of applause, yeah. So as you're doing that, you're doing it in a way of like, okay, cool. It's in phases. It's in steps, you know, because you want them to realize just how cool it is of what they're doing, but you don't want them to be overwhelmed. Yeah. So I really appreciate you sharing that because you know, that's something I constantly think about. If I looked at your calendar the week after you hit the first 10 million, what would shock me the most about how you were spending your time?
I just kept doing the same thing that was already working. Yeah, I didn't go out and buy toys. You know, I actually think this is something that I would like to change in the entrepreneurship environment.
What's that?
To celebrate the little wins.
Man, that's good, man.
Celebrate the little wins. You know, you know, it's funny. I told you I just recently started dating someone who's phenomenal, and she asked me. I had this major accomplishment, so I exited a company, which, by the way, is like less than 0.1% of all entrepreneurs ever sell a company.
It's crazy.
Especially ones that start from the trash piles of a construction site, right? You know what I'm saying? And she asked me one night, she goes, so I'm just curious, when that happened, how'd you celebrate? And I was stunned by it. I was like, I didn't celebrate. I literally got on my computer and went to the next and started building the next business the next day. Like I tried to take 3 weeks off and I had some other folks like, I don't know if that's a good idea for you. Like you need to stay busy, right? But it brought something to my awareness that hadn't been there yet, right? So when you do achieve a milestone, there needs to be something that you celebrate, right? Because by definition, entrepreneurs do a few different things. So obviously they create from nothing, right? They have a vision, they have a heart, they've got something they're trying to accomplish or trying to bring in the marketplace. And they also battle the next thing, which is isolation. It's one of the things I'm trying to change more with all my Unstoppable programs and stuff like that. I'm trying to give entrepreneurs a community, a way to tie into one another, tie into me, like, and not be isolated, not be in a presence of, basically there's nobody for me to ask questions to.
Man, who are you telling?
You know what I'm saying? Because as an entrepreneur, I think it's one of the reasons why the coaching concept that we tested a few weeks ago works so well is because they've been dying to ask these questions to somebody that actually could answer them. You know what I'm saying? And we just gave them a conduit, and I've stayed in contact with everybody, right? The isolation piece by itself is one of the telltale signs of an entrepreneur who's mature and who's not. Entrepreneurs who want to stay isolated in self, don't want to communicate, feel like they have to do it on their own, feel like if they're vulnerable and really shared how they feel, like about making payroll or losing a client or gaining a client or, you know, having to let go of a team member or hire a team member, they're like terrified that they're going to be judged because they're walking the journey out of an entrepreneur, right?
Man, that's good.
So this isolation piece is super important. I also think that entrepreneurs in general, you know, as creative as they can be, are very, 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 very self-critical. I know I am. I hold myself to exceptional standards. Now, I've had to learn to give myself grace to learn from mistakes, because failure is not failure. Let me say that again. Failure is not failure.
That's good. That's good.
Okay? It's lessons. The only difference between a failure and a lesson is whether or not you utilize it to leverage your future. Like I learned a lot by hiring and firing people, right? Hiring and firing people, for example, is never easy. It's not fun. It never should be fun. If you're really good at it, you should be doing it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're like, I'm gonna go fire somebody today, and like you're completely cut off emotionally and whatever. You shouldn't be doing it, right?
TV show stuff.
Yeah, exactly, right? At the same time, like you also have to be self-aware enough of yourself to know where you are struggling and where you need the assistance and help. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm looking at that whole dynamic, there's so many things that are operating inside of an entrepreneur's mind on a daily basis. There's one part of vision cast. I got a new idea, I got a new concept. There's one, I got a fire to put out over here. Oh, I got revenue over here. I got more costs. Oh, damn, I got to pay taxes. Like it's real.
It's very real.
Right? The problem is if you don't celebrate the wins, then the losses are going to feel that much bigger. You have to balance your losses and your wins together. We used to do at our, what's called a weekly production meeting. So we bring the tire team in, we'd have some on Zoom because we had outlying markets in different states. And we have 60 or 70 people in the live, we don't call it audience, but like live, all departments, right? And obviously when your company gets to a certain size, like you can't do this with everybody, but you know, we'd have a couple of volunteers, okay, who wants to share their peaks and valleys for the week? Okay. A couple hands would go up. So they would share these peaks and valleys. All right. I would always share my peaks and valleys for the week because I want to showcase vulnerability to the best of my ability. And I would say, hey, look, you know, you guys know I just went through a divorce. It wasn't fun. Right. And I might share a little bit more, a lot of details, but I'm letting them know, hey, I'm human. Right. I'm not a robot. I don't have it all figured out all the time. And also say, by the way, you know, we also just landed this major deal, this major client, And then we would have other team members stand up and do the same thing. And they would say, hey, my peak for the week is, you know, I just figured out, you know, doubled the size of this department over here. It was amazing. Everybody's killing it and all this kind of stuff. And they would do that. When you start opening up the valley piece, what was interesting about the whole conversation around team members and their valleys is they started sharing some really real stuff. Hey, my mom just died. Hey, my dad just got diagnosed with cancer. Hey, my dog that I've had for 14 years that was there through my divorce and my suicide attempt and all these different things. Man. Like it would blow your mind what vulnerability can do for an organization. Now, I'm not saying there's a time that you should go and overshare. Like you got to be cognizant, right? But what you're doing is you're teaching people to celebrate the wins and respect the quote unquote losses that are really lessons. So I think that's at the core of what I would share with any entrepreneur today on that concept.
You know, it's interesting. My good friend Mario Armstrong has this saying of that vulnerability is the new currency. And as you were talking, I was thinking about all the things that we are doing differently as a company. You know, this podcast, Schools Over Now, what this show has evolved, but also I've evolved over the years. We've been doing this for 7 years. And a lot of the things that you're talking about of showing, hey, going through the hiring process, today wasn't what I thought it would be. This is what happened. We're actually showing that now.
Yeah.
We changed our entire branding, called the entire YouTube Influence Playbook.
I bet you get more shares, more comments because of it.
Oh, 100%. You know, and also we see people saying this is what they wanted to see.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody is all glitz and glamour, but you gotta give them the raw. You gotta give them the energy. You know, and let's talk about it, right? So, like last week, you know, you spent all this time interviewing and having these amazing conversations with so many entrepreneurs in the same building. Right? You coach people at different levels. We're talking about beginners, 6-figure earners, 7-figure
different
builders,
product lines, services, all kinds of stuff.
all of it.
Yeah.
So, what is the one mistake that all of them keep making?
They won't get out of their own way. Notice the ones that got, well, I say that everybody got their shift, right?
Yeah,
But some took the shift from the early stage of the conversation. Some of them even had it all. I remember one entrepreneur, like I was really kind of like, I had to get really direct with.
Correct.
Towards the end of the conversation, I was like, do you want your business to grow? Yes or no? And they was like, yes. Okay. Well, if you want it to grow, then you got to step aside. Okay. So many entrepreneurs, again, they get in their own way. They're either not growing personally, they're not growing professionally, they're not growing at home. Facts. So they're not coming home and building a bridge of safety with their spouse, right? Which I have done. By the way, I've done all these badly. I've also done all of them well, right? They're also not showcasing their team. Their team are coming to them and say, hey, not that we have a problem, but I have an idea. And if they're insecure, I'm like, well, my idea is better. So I'm gonna shut yours down. I'm gonna use mine. Wow. Right. One of the greatest things that I ever did as a leader is I asked this one question. This will rock your world. You ready?
Ready.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. All right.
Yeah. I learned another one from Chris Lacroto, good friend of mine. And I used it and I was terrified to do it the first time. Go to your management team or those that you actually care. Like not that you actually care, but like people that see you, the real you, that you lead. In fact, anyone you lead, a spouse, a child, your team, sit them down look at them dead in their eyes and say, how am I failing you as a leader? And shut up. And when they tell you, don't give excuses, don't be defensive, jot it down and say, thank you for sharing. That means a lot to me. I'm going to go really work on that. Most leaders, when things are brought to their attention, when entrepreneurs are really bad about this in general, when things are brought to their attention, the first thing they want to do is defend themselves. But you don't understand. I got this going on and I'm out here trying to kill it. And I'm out here driving miles and flying miles and I'm doing all these things. I'm doing it for all y'all. Right? They can't see it. They can't understand it. So there's no reason to share it. What they can see is how you treat them, whether or not you listen to them, whether or not you value their opinion, whether or not you don't value their opinion. And again, this is coming from somebody who's screwed all up. One of the things that I did with all the folks that we coached a few weeks ago, and even now, I'm trying to do this even now, I was like, these are areas that I totally screwed up. Yeah. Right? I got to the 9-figure category, not because I was brilliant, not because I was special, not because I had it all figured out, but because I survived my mistakes. I could just survive them. And I learned from them. You know, I sat down with leaders that are board meetings, and we would sit down. Okay, well, tell me about what's going on in the thing, and they would share their what's going on in their department, right? And I would kind of challenge them on the spot rather than just shut up. Some of the best ideas that caused innovation, right, came from the people sitting at the table, not from me. A great leader will sit down at the table and say, "I want, like, first of all, where are you guys at?" Maybe, and we used to open up with prayer and some stuff like that. But they was like, "Where are you guys at? Hey, what's going on in your life? How's your mom and them?" I love that Will Smith with thing with about I forgot which one he was talking to his son.
Jada.
Yeah, and he was like going back. This is back in the day. It was Big Willie style, right? Right.
Just
he had the song on there. He's like da 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 da. And how you mom and them every time. I hear that back in my head all the time.
That might be the song, just the two of us.
Yeah, it was just the two of us. Yeah, it was. I was trying to figure all that out. But they would be around the table, And we would have that brief conversation and say, okay, like, what ideas do you have? What is business we had at the last meeting that we needed to resolve at the last meeting we haven't, that you get, that you like, just like activities, like what activity did you take on the last meeting? Right. And then we'd have new business, and then we'd have innovation. Like, and as it went around, I became a better listener by listening, not telling. They began to sit at the table and offer so much great advice that sometimes I would literally take my notebook, I would close it, and I'll say, you guys gave me a lot to think about. I'm gonna pick this back up next week, and I'm gonna come back, and I would come back with some details. I'm like, hey, I really like I want to implement your idea. Here's, we'll call him Jane Doe over here. Say, hey, what about the risk? Because there's always somebody at the table. It's like all they see is risk. Like that's all they see. Yeah. So I got, this is another one I learned along the way. I don't remember where I learned it from. The person that pokes holes in the dream and the vision has to fill them with solutions.
Yeah.
So if they say, hey, look, I see these, it won't work. Why won't it work? Because of this, this, and this. Okay. Well, if it was going to work and we were going to make that and call solutions, how would you do it? The same person who sees the holes already knows the solutions.
They just got to say it out loud sometimes. We do something very similar. It changed everything. It was like an end of day report, where, we'll hear from a team member how the day was, what difficulty they ran into. Yeah. But then what I like is the solution part, because at the end of the day, they're solving what they had a problem
they're
with.
closer to the ground. They can see it clearer than you can.
Yeah. And they can see like, oh man, this is good. So one thing you say, and you say you help people with multiply profits. So what is the most boring but ridiculously profitable move you wish more entrepreneurs would make?
Go backwards.
What you mean by that?
It's simple. Take a fine-tooth comb, go through your business from where you're at now all the way to the first person in the company and look for bleeding. Most of us think that there's more money to be made by bringing in more clients, when in reality, there's more money to be made by structuring your company correctly.
Ooh, that's it.
Okay. And I say that, and again, I learned that during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I learned that during the 2008 downturn, which my company doubled in size in both of those categories, actually sequential in size during the downturn, doubled in size during the pandemic. And then also when I went through that embezzlement thing, because it forced me to go backwards. So I'll give you an example. In the company that I just exited a year or so ago, that I still own equity in now, like I'm that invested in their success. Right? I'm there if they need me, kind of thing. Board chair, I meet with them quarterly, all that kind of stuff. I had to teach them the metrics that I was been guiding the business on. Okay. So every business can do this. So here's the philosophy. Take your revenue and take every single cost that your business has and actually equate it to a percentage of revenue. Okay. So I'm gonna give you a service-based business example. Okay. Let's say that a company provides labor and materials as a part of a contract to service somebody, okay? And let's say the invoice is $10,000. You should know what percentage of revenue the materials cost you and the labor cost you, okay? Once you know that number, now you've got two numbers you can improve upon. You can get labor differently by maybe paying earlier. There's different ways to get there. You can get your materials differently by actually negotiating better procurement services, et cetera. So let's say the number is 50%, but you get it down to 47. You picked up 3 points in margin. Okay. Let's say it's labor and you're paying 30% of your revenue for that same revenue item, and you get it down to 27. You just pick up 3 more percent. That's 6% margin. 6%.
That's huge.
That wasn't there before.
Yeah.
6% equates to cash and cash flow. So that cash flow now actually becomes more lifeblood of the business. It doesn't become your piggy bank. This is another big error for entrepreneurs. They start pulling money out of their business way too early. Way too early. Right? They're not paying attention to the cash. I call it starving the baby. Would you ever stop buying food for your baby?
Never.
Exactly. And as a result, the baby does what?
Grows.
Exactly. Do you want your business to grow?
100%.
Stop stealing from your company.
Yeah.
Stop trying to impress yourself and go buy the Lamborghini SUV and all the dumb stuff to make yourself feel like you're special.
Yeah.
Let's be real. You're buying those things because you want to make yourself feel like you're special and you're valued, not knowing you already have intrinsic value. The fact that you stuck your neck out there to go do something create something out of nothing, right? And now when you do that, now you're stepping into authenticity, and people follow authenticity, credibility, and vulnerability.
Way more.
They don't follow insecurity. They resist it and they're quiet. They don't say what they need to say when they need to say it, all that kind of stuff. When you go to look at that entire module, when you look at the revenue component, Every business can do this, right? You know how much it costs you to hire editors.
Yep.
You know how much it costs you to book people on shows. We know how much it costs us to actually bring someone in and coach them, like what the workbook cost, right? And if I can find a way to make more margin in each of those categories, 401k, health insurance, all these areas can have incremental improvement. So much so that when part of what I had to do, and this is actually pretty important, always build your company like you want to sell it. Because if you don't, great. It's still going to be a margin machine. Still going to have to produce cash flow, okay? Because if you don't, if you're building the business around you and how much, and like you taking money out of the business, we call it cash distributions or whatever, and you're taking too much, you're stalling your company, you're holding your growth back because you can't invest in ERPs and customer service and CRMs and new team members because certain team members, impact teamers cost money.
100%.
They are worthy investments. If you can't pay attention to those numbers, you can't find those numbers, then what's going to happen is you have nothing to improve upon. It's always going to be focused on how do we get the next customer? How do we get, and you can, oh my God.
Just go.
Hang on. I did an Instagram post about this recently. In fact, I invited everybody to go find it. I was asked, how do I quickly grow my company? I said, stop scaling dysfunction.
That's good.
Dysfunction comes in bad leadership, bad employees, or bad team members. We like to call them. When I say bad, they're not bad people. They're just not as productive as they could be, right? Yeah. Your processes and systems are broken. You're still like writing stuff on napkins and you're trying to grow to a $10 million company. Like you're not using the best accounting solution for yourself. You're not using the best product suite to manage like everything we do. We all use like Slack and Asana. And, you know, at the time I was using a product called Sage, and Sage was like an accounting software. And then we moved to a NetSuite, which is more of a complete SaaS solution. As your business scales, you need those things.
You need them. You got to pay for them. You got to have them. I mean, because your clientele also increases, but they want to be treated, you know, a certain way. You know, I can imagine there's a lot of unseen personal growth you had to do, right? So what part of yourself did you have to completely reinvent in order to become a leader worth following and not just a business owner worth admiring?
It's simple. I had to stop leading by insecurity. All right, so strategically, fortunately, you and I have spent so much time together. You've heard some of this stuff before. I don't think you know when it's going to fall out of my mouth, but strategically, that they say on you know, basically you can do a Google search right now. It's going to say then these 4 or 5 things kind of like transition back and forth. The businesses fail because they're undercapitalized, which means they don't have enough cash. There's not a true business strategy. The product or market fit is not there, meaning they developed a product or a service that nobody wants. They didn't take the time to make sure the marketplace wanted it, right? The leadership team is poor, or there's like not enough management. Here's the whole thing. What drives human behavior?
I would say actions for me personally.
Okay, so what drives actions?
Decisions.
Okay, so thought. Okay, what drives thought?
Concepts.
Emotions.
Yeah. Feelings.
Yep. Feelings. So the reason I say that is because one of the ways you scale dysfunction is by not paying attention to the areas I'm about to mention.
I'm ready for this.
Okay.
Yeah. There
are reasons businesses fail, and it has nothing to do with cash flow. It has nothing to do with strategy. It has nothing to do with leadership. If you can get these under control, you can scale anything. And I've proven it because I'm now scaling my 6th company after selling 4 of them as a roll-up. Okay. Here it is. Impatience, ignorance, arrogance, insecurity, and fear. Those 5 right there are the driving forces behind most entrepreneurial mistakes. So when I'm talking about creating an integrated entrepreneur, someone who is actually fully integrated with self, authenticity, and vulnerability, they have a path of understanding how they're impatient, where they're arrogant, right? Where the fear is, where the insecurity is, and where they're ignorant. Okay, so let's look at those. Impatience. Think you should be further ahead than you actually are, rather than just being present.
Very common.
Okay, be present. Look at your business. Take the fine-tooth comb. Literally answer the question, where am I? Where are we? Right, and spend a month doing it. Part by part. Product, service, people, contracts, all that kind of stuff, right? Ignorance. Where am I actually pushing away what I need to know? The most successful entrepreneurs on the planet all have mentors and coaches. I don't know a single one that doesn't. I have multiple, right?
Different categories.
Different categories. And you have to level up. There's been coaches and mentors. I had my revenues got higher than they created, and they helped me along the way, and then I had to redo it, right? So we got impatience, we got ignorance, we got arrogance. Where do you need to crush your ego? Check your ego at the door, right? You can check your ego and still remain humbly confident. Having a strong personality with wrapped up, you've heard me say this before too. I believe that every entrepreneur and every person should develop the characteristics of being one part lion and one part lamb. Mm-hmm. To be a lion, you're going to be bold and confident, right? To be a lamb, you're going to be empathetic and compassionate. And then you have to develop wisdom to discern the difference. So when you use, some people need a kick in the butt, some people need a big hug. Okay. That one thing will help you get over arrogance. When you're bragging, when your team does something and you're on a podcast and whatever, and you're like, yeah, and I built a 9-figure company and I'm so amazing and I'm so awesome and I'm so wonderful. And your team's like, and they're watching that, they're like, dude, we helped you do it, man. Like we were there. Like, no offense, but you were actually vacationing with your, for that 2 weeks and we did the thing. Now, yeah, you created the vision, but we did the thing. Mm-hmm. Right? So one of the things I teach leaders all the time to do now is give away the credit and accept the responsibility. So when the team is doing really well, like you've heard me say it even on the show today, I'm like, the team crushed it. Get your team in place, get everything, make sure you're training them, make sure you're testing competency, make sure you're ready to rock and roll, right? Your team is going to get you there. So why not celebrate them? Great leaders will accept responsibility. So when the team doesn't measure up, that's when you stand in front and say, hey guys, we didn't hit our goals. And we didn't hit our goals because honestly, I don't know if I did you guys right. Here's how I'm growing. Vulnerability, authenticity, trust. You can't create trust without authenticity and vulnerability, right? That'll get you over arrogance. Insecurity is an inside job. I've got what they call it reparenting your inner child.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, it sounds silly, but it works.
Hey, that's good.
Right? It's understanding where your behaviors are being driven by past experiences that are traumatic in nature. I had this one time I was with a team member and I popped off. I remember like it was yesterday because all I heard behind me was a little bit of, I turned around and said, whoa, what just happened? And she's like, well, we wanted to be part of this thing. And you just had a really harsh no. And she's like, we were going through this and we were going through that. And we were just trying to I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was not aware. I was not self-aware because I was such in a rush. I was trying to get something done. How dare you interrupt me? Yeah. Right. Kind of thing. Right. It crushed that whole thing, but I was leading by insecurity. If you lead by insecurity, your company's going to fail. Mm-hmm. People don't follow insecurity. They follow confidence.
100%.
Confidence can also be communicated in this way. Hey guys, I don't know what the answer is right now, but we can figure it out together.
Figure it out.
Right? Most of us as entrepreneurs, if you're operating for security, you're going to come up with something on the fly. Think you can solve the problem rather than creating a bit more of a mess and creating more of a problem, right? So those are different elements. If you can get your arms and mind around those 5 specific things and get the training and methodologies in place, which is what we do with Unstoppable, if you can get those things in play and conquer those, I can teach you strategies. I can teach you funnels. I can teach you how to build anything.
Teach all that.
I can teach all that. What I can't do is do you. Mm-hmm. You got to do you, right? You got to conquer your insecurities. Stop operating out of fear. You got to realize where you're ignorant at, where you're arrogant at, where you're impatient at. The same thing I'm still doing to this day. The longer it takes you to start the journey, the longer it's going to take you to finish it.
Absolutely, man. I got to ask you, if you could sit across from the Stephen who was still figuring it out at $0, mm-hmm. what would you apologize to him for? And what would you thank him for?
That's so good question. I got to touch my heart here a little bit. That's so good. What would I apologize for? I would apologize for making him feel like he had to do it all on his own. And I would try to mentor him a little bit as part of that. You need people. You need a team. We've done world-class live events. One of our mutual friends, we did Ed Milet, we did his book launch. And we had a team of 12 that day just to run the live event. Pushing buttons, listening to monitors. We got Quest over here, even filming the show today. He was part of that event. And I could have done that by myself. Mm-mm. And that was the thing that really kind of rocketed us into this world.
Yeah.
Right? What would I thank him for? I would thank him for his resilience. You brought up faith a little earlier today. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about faith is if you don't have faith, you're going to operate in fear. You just are. You're going to have a lot of anxiousness. You're going to have a lot of disappointment. You're going to be very self-critical. You're going to lean into those other 5 things that I just mentioned, really hardcore. But if you have faith, you'll have teachability, because your faith will teach you what to do in those moments.
That's good.
Right? I go to God. My dog's Jesus. I also understand energy and resonance and quantum. Like, I understand a whole new frame. I can see Jesus operating in the kingdom when he says the kingdom is like. It's like hearing Joe Dispenza saying the quantum is like. The attributes are identical. You know what I'm saying? There's healing there. There's education. There's divine downloads. It's funny. Most of my biggest problems that were solved, where I had to solve the problem, means I couldn't go to someone else, right? Outside of maybe some minor coaching and stuff, were solved not in moments of activity, but in moments of stillness.
Oh man, Ryan Holiday got his book called Still is Key.
Quiet your mind. I had this journal. I shared this with Amory Lago, who's a good friend of mine. I think she's a good friend of yours as well. And I was on her podcast not that long ago, and she noticed that my countenance. She said, "Dude, you seem like you're so grounded now.
Yeah,
like you just seem different. Like, what's going on?" And I was had to walk through 7 months of like what I just walked through to kind of like get myself to that place. But I did share one thing with her.
What's that?
And that she thought was the most powerful thing that has ever been shared with her recently. She even talked about it on stage this past weekend. I started a new journaling process that I have first thing in the morning. I go sit in stillness. I grab my journal. At the time, it was all handwritten. I'm doing more on my phone just because of time and whatnot. I'm traveling a lot more again. You know, but I remember this before I was doing that. I would wake up. I would turn the fireplace on. I was in Utah at the time. And sometimes my house overlooked the mountains. Like, I could see like 30 miles. It was beautiful. And turn the fire on, grab my journal, be super quiet. And I just wrote at the top, "What I hear you say is." Because a lot of us, when we go to God, we're going to God with requests and talking and all this kind of stuff. And for the first time in my life ever, keep in mind, I'm pushing 50 years old now, 49 years old, right? As we're recording this right now, I'm 49. Thank God I don't look like it. That's good.
Yeah, that's good, man.
But as I'm sitting there and I write that line, I sat there for the first time I did it, probably 3 minutes. And I just trusted that if I just sat there long enough, the divine would talk to me some way, somehow. And lo and behold, about 3 minutes in, I wrote one word. And as I finished the first word, the next word formed itself, and the next word formed itself. And then I finished that whole example, and then I literally have 2 pages. And I go back and read the 2 pages. Oh my God, dude. I was crying like a baby. It was answering all the questions I had in the moment. It was telling me where I needed to work on me, where I needed to lean into him, where like what my next steps were, what my calling was, right? One of the things that I wrote down in that journal said, "You will awaken the dead, liberate the captives, and feed the hungry." Okay? Awake. What am I doing now? What are we doing now? We're awakening the dead. We're waking people up. Wake up.
Yeah.
You can be a crazy successful entrepreneur and be whole at the same time. Liberate the captives, all these limiting beliefs and the ignorance and the pride and the arrogance, all this stuff, like all that. Feed those who are in need, right? So literally feed them. Like we make money so we can feed people.
Yeah.
Right? We also make content so we can feed the mind. And if you come to a live event or something that I'm at, whether I'm hosting it or we're putting it on for ourselves, you need a hug, I'm going to give you a freaking hug. You need a kick in the pants, I'm going to kick you in the pants. I'm going to keep it real with you because I want to see you win. I want to see you succeed. I don't want to see you flounder like I did for a decade. You don't have to flounder for a decade. You can go through 3 to 6 months of really intense pressure to work on you and come out the other side and kick butt, you know? So that one process, I encourage everybody to do. What I hear you say is, and just sit there. And if it's one sentence, it's one sentence. If it's one word, it's one word. If it's 3 pages, it's 3 pages. And do that for a period of time. And watch everything that you need to focus on, everything you need to lean into, all the relationships you need to connect. In fact, I'm going to share this. I'll show this publicly. Yeah, sure. This is more of a friendship thing. So I went to the whole month of February. Okay. I was talking to a lot of my mentors, a lot of my coaches, and some psychosomatic experts and stuff like that. People are energetically inclined, people of faith, all kinds of stuff. And they all had one thing in common. Hey, you need go do your normal thing, because I do sabbaticals. Okay. Anytime I have a major life transition, whether it be good or bad is a relative term, I'll go do a sabbatical. It's equivalent to going on a honeymoon. Right? You go on a honeymoon when things are going good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Sabbatical is like you and God. There's no agenda. You can do it over one day. You can do it over what? For this time in my life, I'm in a good place in life where I could take an extended trip. I took 3 weeks and went to New Zealand. Okay. Got on an airplane, flew 14 hours from LA, right? Just from LA to New Zealand. It's a long plane ride.
Oh my
A lot of time to think.
14 hours is crazy.
A lot of time to think. Now, I land there and I got more questions than answers, right? And I'm there almost the entire 3 weeks. And then I had literally one moment, a 45-minute window, 2 days before I'm supposed to leave, where 36 synchronicities happen all at one time. And when you have that many synchronicities happen all at one time, it's part of I got this tattoo on my arm. This is Maori art, right? So the Maori people are Polynesian people that are indigenous to the area. And I got 3 kings listed here because in my spirit, when this moment happened, I heard Kenji, Aslan, and Mufasa. All 3 of them are kings, and they all share one thing in common. Actually, 2 things. They all serve their people, and they all got their crowns by service and by pressure. None of them were given a crown. It's the difference between a King David and a King Saul. Okay, David was made king in a cave, not king in a palace. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's that same pressure that you can cultivate within yourself, right? But I shared this with you, and I'll share this publicly now. I'm done this massive experience. I feel whole. I feel complete. I've literally been reborn, almost like you feel the first time you ever get baptized.
Man, that's good.
Right? You're just ready to roll. You're like, I knew when I got on the, I knew exactly what I was doing when I get back, all this kind of stuff. But I did in that same journal moment I mentioned to you before. What I hear you say is, in that same moment, I said, okay, what do I do next? Give me one name. He said, Shawn Anthony. I emailed you that same day, and here we are.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Social's blowing up. We're obviously doing a lot of really good stuff together. And I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger because you have a unique skill set that I don't think your audience even knows about.
Tell them about it because we're trying to show it to them.
So I think everybody knows your superpower with connecting people.
Absolutely.
What they don't understand fully is the superpower of your mind, how your mind works. Right? You have a mind that is similar to mine in that we can see everything that needs to go up on a wall and we can rearrange it into steps that people can actually take.
Yeah.
Right? In our respective niches. Right? You also have an unknowing sense of service. Right? It's easy to be on Instagram and be a business owner and be a little bit flashy because you've done some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
We're both connected to really cool people, right? That have also done really cool work, right? And it's easy to get lost in that. Then you come spend time with you, you're like, hey, bro, like, what do you think about this? Like, here's what I'm seeing. What if the coaching that we just did?
Yeah.
Okay. We sat down. Was it, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe a month ago? It's like, it wasn't that long.
Yeah, it's probably, later it might be this month. Oh, no, I think it was like last week of March. I think last week of March,
right? So we sit down and we're on a dry erase board and you're like, hey, tell me what is it you want to do in the world?
Yeah.
I said, well, I want to be Steve Myrick to as many people as possible. I want to give them a second chance they didn't know existed. And then I want to empower them and encourage them and teach them how to take advantage of it. Right? Because I don't have to do any of this anymore. Like I could just focus on real estate or
just ride off to the sunset.
I wouldn't say right off because I would be bored, right?
Be bored, yeah.
But the general premise is like, I'm a builder by nature.
100% you are.
I can build a website, I can build a funnel, I can build a house, I can build an apartment building, I can build it, right? We sat down with that. You're like, well, let me show you something. You pull up my phone, you go through my Instagram, you go through my YouTube, you go to Facebook, you're like, all right, show me one place where you're coaching people. And I was like, well, Shawn, most of the people I coach don't want me to say that they're being coached by me because they're high profile. They got, one of my clients was a 10-figure earner. And here I am. I'm not a 10-figure earner. So what does a not a 9-figure earner have that he can offer to a 10-figure earner?
Yeah.
And there's something specifically, right? I've had 8-figure, like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're playing that game, which is the humility piece, right? And I was like, wait a minute. I think I'm in my own way. I'm giving Shawn an excuse. Shawn, if we were going to do this differently, if we were going to do this, what would we do? He said, man, we'll go find some people to coach. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that. So I was like, okay, well, bring me an entrepreneur from 0 to 500K, 501K to 1.5 million, and 1.5 million plus.
Brought them all.
And you brought them all. And we served them all to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Right? And they were all at different stages. And it's funny, I was sitting here when we were doing, because we were in the same room for a lot of it.
Correct.
And one of the things that I realized is I was telling the person I started seeing recently, she's much more private than I am. So I'm refraining from using all the names and stuff. But when I was talking to her, and we were talking about, I said, she was, well, how'd it go today? And, I'm watching, it looks on social media, guys, like it was great. And then, the testimonials, man, God, man, dude. Bro,
Crazy,
I started watching some of those things. I started crying, man. And we actually had a few entrepreneurs that cried alongside of me. But when we did that exercise, I was like, I said, babe, it really tested me.
Mm-hmm.
It really tested me in a beautiful way. Because I've been teaching this principles of the 5 drivers and the 5 phases and all these different things that are all relative and literally like flywheels. Like the 5 drivers and the 5 phases do like this over and over again. And you scale a company over and over again, just like that. But we had essentially a media personality that was trying to, in a heavily real estate portfolio, they wanted to develop and scale a team. And he had 2 specific lanes they wanted to develop and grow. We had a product business that was a fragrance that I think that fragrance was amazing. We were able to work with them and give them a plan to go to market. We had a fellow thought leader that's really, I think she's amazing and gifted. I think she's going to do a lot of big things, but she needed strategy and clarity on what she needed to go to market with, right? So we had all these different industries, like all these different issues, and they all shared one problem.
What's that?
Lack of clarity.
Yep.
What do I do next? What do I do next?
What's so interesting watching you do that? And guys, he's not just talking. The entrepreneurs got on planes. They flew here. They drove. They drove, 5 hours?
One coming from New York.
One from New York. One from New York. One from Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's just a testament to what you're doing, what you're building. And I appreciate you and your time. And I got to ask you a couple rapid fire questions before I get out of here.
Sorry, I'll go off on a tangent.
No. I also want to make sure people can find you. I want rapid fire questions here.
Yep, let's go.
What is one book that should be a warning label, not a guide?
See, if I call out the book, you're just going to call out the author of the book, and I don't want to do that. I've tried to build my career on.
Is it 48 Laws of Power, or what is it?
No, I think I'll say it. I'll say there's a genre of book.
Okay, I'll take genre.
Any book that teaches that you're going to be successful because of hustle culture.
That's good.
Hustle culture must die. It's burning people out. It's destroying families. It's ending marriages, and it's causing entrepreneurs to feel like they're not enough. Whereas everything that we teach is more about not hustle culture. It's about wise decision making, setting dominoes up in your favor, creating momentum, and by creating priorities, by knowing what to focus on, when to focus on it, and how to focus on it. That's a major one.
I like that. Coffee meeting or boardroom? Where do real moves happen?
Dude. I've had good ones in both because I'm a dry erase freak. I like a whiteboard. I like a whiteboard with coffee. I got my whiteboard in here. I got my coffee sitting right here. In fact, I almost got up a few times to start drawing. Sensitive conversations at a coffee shop, strategy on a whiteboard.
I like it. Okay. Hire fast or fire fast?
Fire fast.
Legacy and what?
With a framework.
Okay.
Make sure that you've tested competency. Make sure they're really the problem.
I like that. Legacy in one word.
It has to outlive you.
Okay. Most underestimated skill in entrepreneurship.
Faith.
Elaborate on that.
I thought that was coming.
Elaborate on that.
I see a lot of really, really, really special entrepreneurs who give up just before their breakthrough. They don't realize it's when you go to God and you say, God, please bless my business, his answer is never no. It just doesn't come in the form you think it is. I heard T.D. Jakes say this one time. I've followed T.D. Jakes off and on for a long time. So I'm gonna use his analogy.
Yeah.
He says when you go to God and ask him for a table, he gives you an acorn. Okay. Acorns must be planted in the right soil at the right time in the right season. They must get the nutrients it needs, watering, sunlight, etc. And then they grow into oak trees. And then that oak tree can then be harvested as other acorns are falling and creating more oak trees into a table. And then the master carpenter takes and works and builds it. So I believe all entrepreneurship follows that one principle, right? Everything starts with the idea, the acorn, okay? That acorn and that idea has to be cultivated in the right soil, the right people, the right network, right? Avoiding isolation, making sure that you're not operating from insecurity and fear and limiting beliefs and stuff like that. right? Then it begins to grow into the tree. It begins to become remember that pillar I told you else, we're investing, like you're investing, it's growing. Oh my God, it's growing. This is awesome. Right. Then other acorns are beginning to fall and plant future seeds. Like a lot of the thought leadership world that I'm doing now, or this personal development space or whatever, this wasn't even on my radar a decade ago. Like I was too busy building a major construction company. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the acorns fell everywhere. I realized that I was teaching and empowering and encouraging, and my team was developing. And like, it's funny, even team members I had to fire are still friends.
That's
right?
Crazy.
Because I care. And they knew I care, right? Well, then I go to build the acorn. So now all the financial resources I've been able to generate and cultivate, now I was able to invest in this early stage of this world of thought leadership. And so you have to have the faith to believe that it will be the thing that God placed in your heart, but it may not look like how you thought it would look. In fact, most times it doesn't look even remotely close to what you thought it would be.
Man, that's good.
So you got to have the faith to push forward, but also become aware. So faith with stupidity causes danger. Faith with strategy causes fulfillment.
Oh, that's good, man. You know, it made me think about the entrepreneurship journey and myself. You know, when I left that corporate world in 2021, I was just teaching people podcasting. I turned podcasting to a 6-figure side hustle. And then I realized the real value.
It should be its own podcast name, 6-figure side hustle.
Someone might got it, man. But I literally turned into that. And then I realized the power was putting that microphone in front of someone, allowing them to be the authority.
Yeah,
man, I appreciate you for your time today. I appreciate how you rocked it out all month long with all these different clients and learning more about you and what you're doing. People want to know more about you. Where can they find you? They want to know more about Unstoppable. You didn't really go too much on Safe Haven, which I'm gonna push you to talk about a little bit here. Okay. But how can we stay in touch with everything that you're building? Well,
we're obviously on every platform with Stephen Scoggins, Stephen Scoggins, like Goggins, but with a SCO, right? Yeah. So I'm personally most active on Instagram, and you can go to stephenscoggins.com from the website. So those are probably the two easiest places to learn more. We do have a lot of really cool things coming to help entrepreneurs actually be successful. And we were able to test those even during the coaching session. So.
Absolutely. Listen, man, I appreciate you. Guys, for those who have been listening, I want you to always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. We'll see you next week.
Let's go.
Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at Shawn Anthony _, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know, and while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.